the heart of this nation, under skies so blue,
there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true.
from the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. We're diving deep into the heart of what we believe.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. We're the podcast where we take source material you're curious about and, well, we unpack it for you.
We try to pull out the key bits of information, the main takeaways.
And today, we're diving into an article, specifically one looking into the groups and people who, according to this source, have supported Elias Rodriguez.
Right. He's the man accused in that shooting outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in D.C.
Just to be absolutely clear up front, everything we talk about today comes only from the factual claims presented in this one article.
Exactly. It's all based on this single source you shared, which details a letter supporting Rodriguez and talks about alleged links between the signers and others.
So think of this as us just walking you through this one piece of reporting. We'll show you who the article says is involved,
what it claims the reasons are, and where it says the connections might lead.
and it's really important for you to know. We're just presenting the info from the article. We're not endorsing any of it, not the views in the letter, not the article's conclusions.
Definitely not. We're just exploring the content. And according to this source, it gets pretty complex.
How so?
Well, the article points to connections involving student activists, but also organizations. It links to political figures, donors,
Okay.
and even groups that have, designations from the U.S. government. It's quite a web, according to this reporting.
All right, let's get into it then. Where does the article start?
It starts with the central event itself, the shooting. It names the victims as Israeli diplomats Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lashinsky.
And it states Elias Rodriguez is the accused shooter.
Yes, and it mentions police reportedly said he confessed to the shooting outside the Capitol Jewish Museum.
Got it. So from that event, where did the article go?
It pivots pretty quickly to what seems to be its main focus, an open letter.
An open letter about Rodriguez.
Exactly, expressing support for him. The article says it was organized by a group called the Tariq El-Tahrir Youth and Student Network.
Okay, Tariq El-Tahrir. And what does the letter actually say, according to this source?
Well, the article reports some really strong language. It says the letter calls the shooting fully justified.
Wow. Fully justified.
Yeah, and also eminently defensible and even morally righteous. That's what the source claims is in the letter.
Any other specific phrases the article highlights?
It does. It mentions the letter includes lines like, give pause to the Zionists, and the slogan, globalize the Intifada.
Okay. So who does the article say actually signed on to this?
It lists 21 organizations in total, and it also specifically names an individual signatory Democratic activist, Kamau Franklin.
21 groups plus Franklin. Does the article zoom in on any of them?
It does. It highlights several key signatories and what it describes as their connections.
Like who?
Well, one is the Liberation Caucus of the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA.
DSA. The article connects them to anyone well-known.
It notes that DSA is, the largest socialist group in the U.S., and that squad members Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and Greg Cesar are members.
Does it say if they commented on this caucus signing the letter?
Specifically about Ocasio-Cortez, the article mentions she did a virtual event with DSA's New York chapter, but it also states she hasn't addressed her own caucus, the Liberation Caucus, signing this particular letter.
Okay. What about Kamau Franklin, the individual signatory?
The article focuses on him quite a bit. It says he didn't just sign, but also promoted the letter.
And his role?
It identifies him as the treasurer of the Black Voters Matter Action PAC.
Ah, and does the article mention funding there? That often comes up in these kinds of pieces.
It does. It draws a line to funding, stating that this PAC received $2.4 million.
From where?
From George Soros and the Soros-funded Democracy PAC. That's the connection the article makes.
Interesting. Who else does the article highlight among the signatories?
Another one is the Brandeis Jewish Bund.
Brandeis, like the university.
Yes, at Brandeis University. The article describes them as a self-described anti-Zionist group.
And it points out the irony there.
It does note the context that Brandeis itself was founded by Jewish Americans, partly to combat anti-Semitism in higher education.
Okay. Any other groups?
It mentions Unity of Fields. The article links them to recent events, saying they were involved in the Columbia protests.
Right.
And also Bronx anti-war. This piece states it was co-founded by Janet Goodman Clark.
And does it connect her to anything else?
Yes, the source identifies her as a member in Jewish Voice for Peace, which it also notes is Soros-funded.
Okay, so we're seeing recurring themes of funding sources and specific group affiliations mentioned in the article.
Definitely. And then there's NIDL Seattle. The article's description here is quite pointed.
How so?
It says the leader, Bisan Barghouti, is reported to be a member of Samidoun.
Samidoun. I feel like I've heard that name.
You might have. The article describes Samidoun as an anti-Israel group designated last year by both the U.S. and Canada as a terrorist group.
Why?
Due to its alleged ties to Hamas, according to this reporting.
Wow. And Bisan Barghouti, the leader of NIDL Seattle. Any other affiliations mentioned?
The article adds that she's a former official with the Washington State chapter of the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union.
So that's quite a claim, linking a signatory's leader to a designated group and the ACLU.
Yes, that's the picture this particular article paints based on its reporting.
Okay, so we've looked at the letter, some key signers. Does the article trace things back even further? Like, where did the group that organized the letter come from?
It does. It goes back to that initial group, the Tariq El-Tahrir Youth and Student Network.
Right.
The article reports they were formed just last year by another group called Masar Badil.
And Masar Badil is?
Described in the article as a multinational anti-Zionist group.
Okay, and is there a connection there that the article emphasizes?
A very direct one, according to the source. It names Khaled Barakat as the founder of both Masar Badil,
The parent group.
and Samidoun.
Samidoun, the group designated as a terrorist org.
The very same one, yes. And the article goes further, stating the U.S. government describes Barakat himself as a senior member of the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which the article explicitly identifies as another designated terrorist group.
So, just to trace that back according to the article, the letter organizer, Tariq El-Tahrir, was formed by Masar Badil, whose founder, Barakat, also founded Samidoun, linked to Hamas, and is allegedly a senior member of the PFLP.
That's the chain of connections laid out in this specific piece of reporting, yes.
Okay, that's quite a network alleged there. Now, what about Rodriguez himself? Does the article say he had ties to these specific groups like Tariq El-Tahrir or Samidoun?
That's an important point the article makes. It says he does not appear to have direct ties to those specific organizations signing or organizing the letter.
Okay, so no direct link found by the source between him and those groups.
Correct. However, the article does report he was involved with other groups.
Which ones?
2 other radical groups, according to the source. The Party of Socialism and Liberation, or PSL,
Okay.
and the Answer Coalition.
Answer. Act now to stop war and end racism. That one.
That seems to be the one, yes.
And does the article connect these groups, PSL and Answer, to anything else?
It does. This is where another layer comes in, according to the reporting. It links both groups to a network allegedly funded by an American businessman named Neville Roy Singham.
Neville Roy Singham. And what's the significance of him, according to the article?
The source claims Singham has links to the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP.
So the article is suggesting a funding network tied to the CCP is connected to groups Rodriguez was part of.
That's the allegation. The article cites the Network Research Contagion Institute to back this up.
And what does this institute claim, as reported in the article?
According to the article, the institute alleges this Singham network uses groups like Answer and PSL essentially as conduits.
Conduits for what?
For CCP-affiliated groups to leverage pro-Palestinian activism in the U.S. The quote the article uses says it's about advancing a broader anti-American, anti-democratic, and anti-capitalist agenda.
So the article is presenting this alleged CCP-linked network using these activist groups Rodriguez belonged to.
That's the argument presented in the source. And it adds a specific detail, seemingly to reinforce the link to Rodriguez.
What's that?
It notes that back in September 2017, the Chicago chapter of the Answer Coalition apparently organized a fundraiser for Rodriguez.
Ah, okay, so that's presented as a direct link between Rodriguez and one of the groups in this alleged Singham CCP network.
Precisely. That seems to be the article's implication.
Right, so we've gone from the shooting to the letter, the signatories, the alleged PFLP links via the organizers, and now Rodriguez's own alleged ties via Peace Lancer to this reported Singham CCP network. That's a lot of connections drawn in one article.
It is. It connects a lot of dots based on the reporting presented.
So after laying all this out, what's the article's sort of final takeaway? What's the broader conclusion it draws from this web of alleged connections?
The article concludes by saying that even though many of these specific supporting groups aren't household names, Their reported ties, as the article describes them, to prominent Democratic lawmakers, donors, and organizations reflect the extent to which anti-Semitism has infiltrated the party.
Okay, that's a very strong claim.
It is. And again, just to be crystal clear for you listening, that is the conclusion presented in the article we are examining. We are just reporting what the source says. We're not validating that conclusion ourselves.
Absolutely crucial point. Our goal here is just to show you the information and arguments contained within this one specific source. So why is it useful for you, the listener, to understand how this particular article puts these pieces together?
Well, looking just at this source material, it demonstrates how one piece of reporting can take an event and then trace out what it presents as a complex network.
Right, it shows the specific path this article took.
Exactly. It lets you see the specific individuals, the specific groups, the funding claims, the alleged affiliations that this source chose to highlight and connect. It helps you understand the structure of this particular information package,
So, to recap this deep dive, we started with the shooting incident and the supportive open letter, as reported in the source.
Then we followed the trail the article laid out, looking at who signed the letter, the alleged deeper connections of the organizers back to groups like the PFLP.
The separate alleged ties of Rodriguez himself to groups reportedly linked to Neville Roysingham, and, according to the source, the CCP.
And finally, the article's own stated conclusion about what it all means, specifically regarding the Democratic Party and anti-Semitism, according to them.
And we have to stress one last time, this exploration was entirely limited to the content of the single article provided as source material.
We didn't bring in outside context or alternative viewpoints, just unpacked what was there.
So here's a final thought for you, just based on wading through the connections presented in this one article. When you see reporting that draws lines between so many seemingly different players, student groups, political donors, activist organizations, foreign entities, designated groups, what does this specific piece of reporting suggest about how hard it can be to evaluate such complex claims, especially when you're getting the information from just one source in our, very overloaded information world?
It's definitely something to chew on, just considering the information presented here.
A lot to think about. That's it for this deep dive.
Deep dive in the building. UK what really good. Let's dive in. Get triggered. Netflix, you son of an itch. In your show Adolescence, you pulled a race switch. The real killer teen is black, you made him white. This ish just ain't right. We're diving deep into the heart